You are listening to the best audio story of 2026. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel, turn on notifications, and watch until the end so you don't miss the ending that will leave everyone stunned. A businessman's wife claimed she was at church, but her car was parked outside a motel. Jonathan Whitmore received the photograph at 8:43 on a rainy Thursday night. He was alone in his private office on the 21st floor of Whitmore Development, reviewing a stack of contracts that should have been handled hours earlier. Nashville glittered through the glass wall behind him, blurred by rain and traffic lights. His desk lamp threw a circle of gold over blueprints, legal documents, and an untouched cup of coffee gone cold. His wife had texted him 15 minutes earlier. "Claire, prayer meeting is running late. I'll be home after 10. Love you." Jonathan had smiled faintly when he read it. Claire was always doing something for the church. Women's ministry, charity drives, prayer meetings, hospital visits, choir schedules, food pantry events. He admired that about her. In a world where so many people chased status, Claire still seemed devoted to service. He typed back, "Take your time. Drive safe. Love you too." Then he returned to the contracts. A few minutes later, his assistant, Natalie Brooks, sent a message. "Natalie, sir, I may be wrong, but isn't this Mrs. Whitmore's car?" Attached was a photo. Jonathan opened it casually at first. Then everything inside him went still. The photo showed a white Mercedes parked under a flickering motel sign. Rain streaked across the windshield. The license plate was visible. So was the small blue church parking sticker in the lower corner of the glass. Claire's car. There was no mistake. Behind the Mercedes, a motel room door showed the number 12. The sign above the parking lot read, "Willow Creek Motel." Jonathan stared at the image. Then he looked back at Claire's text. "Prayer meeting is running late." His office became strangely quiet. The rain tapped against the windows. Somewhere beyond the door, the cleaning staff moved through the hallway. His phone screen reflected faintly in the polished surface of his desk. Jonathan read Claire's text again, then looked at the photo again. Church. Motel. Prayer meeting. Room 12. For a moment, his mind tried to protect him. Maybe Natalie was mistaken. Maybe Claire had stopped there to help someone. Maybe the motel was near the church. Maybe there was some outreach program. Maybe the photo was old, but the timestamp was current. 8:41 p.m. 2 minutes before Natalie sent it. Jonathan slowly stood. His chair rolled back behind him. He picked up his coat, his phone, and the folder of contracts he no longer cared about. At the office door, he stopped and looked once more at the photograph. Claire's car was parked outside a motel while she told him she was at church. He did not call her. Not yet. He needed to see it with his own eyes. Jonathan and Claire Whitmore were the kind of couple people admired before knowing them. He was a successful businessman, owner of a construction and real estate company that had reshaped half of Nashville's skyline. He was disciplined, generous in public, controlled in private, and known for remembering people's names, even when he was too busy to attend their parties. Claire was elegant, soft-spoken, and respected in their church community. She had the kind of grace people mistook for peace. She led women's charity projects, arranged flowers for Sunday service, visited widows, and wrote handwritten thank you notes after every fundraiser. At church luncheons, older women praised her as a Proverbs woman. Younger wives asked her advice on marriage, faith, and patience. Together, Jonathan and Claire looked like success wrapped in morality. They lived in a beautiful stone house outside the city, donated generously to church building projects, hosted pastors and business partners at long dining tables, and posed for photos that made their life appear stable, polished, and blessed. Jonathan believed that image, mostly, not because he was naive, because he wanted it to be true. He had not grown up wealthy. His father ran a small hardware store that failed after a bad partnership. His mother cleaned houses. Jonathan learned early that money meant protection, and protection required work. He built Whitmore Development from one risky renovation project into a multi-million-dollar company. He worked constantly because he remembered what instability felt like. Claire had married him before the company became impressive. Back then, he was just a determined man with debt, a second-hand truck, and a habit of sketching building plans on napkins. She met him at a church fundraiser where he was repairing a broken stage step. "You're fixing that in a suit?" she asked. He looked down at his rolled sleeves and loosened tie. It was either fix it or watch Pastor David fall through it. Claire smiled. He would call that suffering for the Lord. Jonathan laughed. That laugh had surprised him. He did not laugh easily then. Claire had been warm, faithful, and unafraid of his ambition. She helped him when he was tired. She reminded him to eat. She prayed over deals he was afraid would fail. She sat with him in his truck outside banks that refused him loans and said, "One closed door is not the whole house." He loved her for that. He still loved her. That was what made the photograph feel impossible. Their marriage had grown colder over the years, but Jonathan thought that happened to many couples. Not love disappearing, just life becoming heavy. He worked too much. Claire gave too much to church. They often passed each other like people responsible for the same estate rather than the same heart. Claire had tried to tell him. Once, 6 months earlier, she stood in his home office doorway while he reviewed a contract. "Do you ever miss me?" she asked. He looked up. "You're standing right there." "That's not what I mean." He sighed, tired and distracted. "Claire, I have 3 deadlines before tomorrow." She smiled sadly. "I know. There's always something standing between us." He closed the folder. "I'm sorry. Let's take a trip after the Henderson deal closes." "I don't want another trip." "Then what do you want?" She looked at him for a long moment. "I want to feel like your wife, not the woman who keeps your life respectable while you build everything else." The word stung. He said the wrong thing. "That's unfair." She nodded. "Maybe, but it's honest." He promised to do better. He meant it, meaning it was easy. Changing was harder. By the next week, he was swallowed by work again. Claire filled her evenings with church. Jonathan admired her devotion because it made him feel less guilty about his absence. If she was at church, she was not alone. If she was serving, she was fulfilled. If she was praying, she was safe. He never understood that church became the perfect excuse because he trusted it too much to question. Ryan Cole had joined Grace Covenant Church less than a year earlier, recently divorced, charming, musical, soft-spoken when it helped him appear humble. He played guitar on the worship team and helped with charity events. Women in the congregation praised his vulnerability. Men liked him because he was useful and never seemed threatening. Jonathan shook his hand one Sunday after service. "Glad to have you here," Jonathan said. Ryan smiled, trying to start over. Jonathan nodded. Good place for that. He meant it. He did not know Ryan would use that fresh start to end his wife's loneliness. Claire and Ryan first worked closely during a church fundraising gala. Jonathan donated the money. Claire handled the planning. Ryan coordinated music and volunteers. He noticed details Jonathan missed because Ryan's attention cost him nothing. He noticed when Claire looked tired after smiling too long. He noticed when she rubbed her temples after a committee meeting. He noticed when Jonathan arrived late to events, kissed Claire on the cheek, and immediately began shaking hands with donors. One evening, after a planning session, Ryan found Claire in the church kitchen, stacking leftover plates. "You don't have to clean up everyone's mess," he said. Claire smiled, without looking at him. "If I don't, someone else will have to." That sounds like the motto of a woman nobody notices is exhausted. She paused. He stepped closer, but not too close. "Sorry, too personal?" Claire should have said yes. Instead, she gave a small laugh. "Accurate is not always polite." Ryan smiled. That was the beginning. The first conversations were about church work. Then about Ryan's divorce. Then about Claire's loneliness. He told her she was more than a businessman's wife, more than a ministry leader, more than the beautiful woman beside Jonathan at public events. "You look like everyone's idea of faithful," Ryan said once. "But I wonder if anyone asks whether you're tired of being strong." Claire cried in her car that night. Then she answered his next message. The affair began emotionally and dressed itself in spiritual language. They were encouraging each other. They were praying through confusion. They were helping each other feel seen. But holy language cannot make hidden desire clean. The first kiss happened in the church parking lot behind the fellowship hall after a charity meeting ran late. Claire whispered, "This is wrong." Ryan said, "Then why does it feel like the first honest thing in your life?" That sentence became dangerous because Claire wanted to believe it. Soon, church meetings became cover for coffee. Coffee became drives. Drives became motel rooms. The Willow Creek Motel was on the edge of town, a low, aging place near the highway where no one from their social circle was supposed to be. Ryan said it was safer than his apartment. Claire agreed, because agreement was easier than facing what the word safer meant. Every time she parked outside room 12, she told herself it would be the last time. Every time she left, she swore she would confess. Then she would return home with her Bible tote bag on the passenger seat and tell Jonathan the prayer meeting had been long. And Jonathan would believe her. The rain made the road shine as Jonathan drove toward the Willow Creek Motel. He drove himself. He did not ask his driver. He did not call Natalie for details. He did not call Claire. The city thinned into older streets, then highway frontage roads, then the dim stretch where the motel sign flickered red through the rain. When he saw the white Mercedes, something inside him collapsed quietly. It was parked exactly as in the photograph. Outside room 12, Claire's church parking sticker showed clearly on the windshield. Her Bible tote sat on the passenger seat, the corner of a church bulletin visible inside. Jonathan parked across the road beneath a closed gas station canopy. He turned off his headlights. For several minutes, he only watched. The motel looked tired and cheap, with peeling paint and puddles shining under yellow lights. Rain dripped from the roofline. A vending machine glowed near the office. Room 12 had one curtain drawn, but light leaked around the edges. Jonathan's phone buzzed. Claire! He looked at the screen. Claire, still praying with the group. I may be later than expected. Don't wait up. Jonathan stared at the message. Still praying. Across the road, the motel room door opened. Ryan Cole stepped outside. He wore jeans and a dark shirt, hair slightly damp, face turned toward the rain. Jonathan's grip tightened around the steering wheel. A few seconds later, Claire appeared in the doorway behind him. She was not dressed for church. Her hair was loose. Her blouse was half-tucked. Her face looked soft in a way Jonathan had not seen directed at him in a long time. Ryan turned and touched her cheek. Claire did not pull away. Jonathan felt the last fragile explanation die. He wanted to cross the road. He wanted to drag Ryan into the rain. He wanted to ask Claire if she had prayed before or after stepping into room 12. But he did not move. Not yet. A businessman learns that acting too soon can cost truth. Jonathan lifted his phone and took one photo, then another. Not because he wanted to keep them. Because tomorrow, Claire would have a voice, tears, excuses, and memory would begin to blur. Evidence would not. Ryan went back inside. Claire followed. The door closed. Jonathan sat in the dark, rain hammering the windshield while his wife's lie lit up his phone. Before going home, Jonathan drove to the church. Grace Covenant stood quiet under the rain, its white steeple barely visible against the dark sky. The parking lot was empty except for a maintenance van. No prayer meeting. No women's circle. No late worship team rehearsal. He parked near the entrance and looked at the building. For years, he had associated this place with stability, Claire's faith, their vows, community, respectability. He had donated to repair the roof, fund the youth wing, expand the food pantry. He had sat through sermons beside Claire, feeling sometimes guilty, sometimes comforted, always certain that their shared life had moral walls around it. Now those walls looked like scenery. He called Pastor David but hung up before it rang twice. Then he called Margaret Ellis, the women's ministry leader. She answered with concern in her voice. Jonathan, is everything all right? I'm sorry to bother you this late. Was there a prayer meeting tonight? A pause. No, it was cancelled. Ruth had the flu, and several women couldn't come. Jonathan closed his eyes. Say, is Claire okay? His jaw tightened. She said she was with you all? Margaret hesitated. She told me she couldn't help tonight because she was spending the evening with you. There it was. The second wall falling. Claire had told him she was at church. She had told church she was with him. She had placed herself between two trusted places, each believing she belonged to the other. Jonathan swallowed. Thank you, Margaret. Jonathan, what's wrong? Good night. He ended the call. For a long time, he sat in the empty church parking lot. Then he drove home. Claire came in at 10:37 p.m. Jonathan was waiting at the kitchen table. He had changed out of his work jacket. He had not turned on the television. The house was silent except for rain against the windows. Claire entered through the side door carrying her Bible tote bag. She looked tired and calm, practiced. Sorry I'm late, she said, setting the tote on the counter. The meeting ran long. Jonathan looked at her. He let the sentence sit. Claire removed her coat slowly. What? How was prayer meeting? She blinked. It was good, emotional. A few women are going through a hard time. Jonathan almost laughed. A few women? He nodded. And Ruth came? Claire's face tightened for half a second. Ruth? She was leading tonight, wasn't she? Claire looked down. No, Margaret led most of it. Jonathan placed Natalie's photo on the table. Claire stared at it. Her face went white. The photo showed her white Mercedes outside room 12. Jonathan's voice was quiet. You told me you were at church. Your car was parked outside room 12. Claire did not move. He placed his own photo beside it. Ryan at the motel door. Claire behind him. Rain falling. Her hand on the door frame. Claire covered her mouth. Jonathan, I went there. She closed her eyes. I saw you. Tears began to fall. He placed his phone on the table. I also called Margaret. There was no prayer meeting. You told her you were home with me. Claire sank into the chair across from him. The Bible tote bag sat on the counter between the coffee maker and a bowl of fruit. The sight of it made him feel ill. Jonathan leaned forward. I trusted you more on church nights than any other night. That was the night you chose to lie. Claire sobbed. I'm sorry. No. She looked up. Not yet, he said. You don't get to start with sorry before truth. She trembled. He waited. The silence stretched. Finally, Claire whispered, I had an affair with Ryan. Jonathan closed his eyes. Even with the photo, the motel, the sight of them together, hearing the words still cut deeper. Again, he said. She looked broken. I had an affair with Ryan. Again. I had an affair with Ryan. The room seemed to settle around the truth. Ugly, but solid. How long? He asked. 3 months. His jaw tightened. How many times at that motel? Claire cried harder. 4. And before that? His apartment? His car? After meetings? Jonathan stared at the table. After meetings. Church meetings. Charity meetings. Prayer meetings. The language of service turned into architecture for betrayal. He looked back at her. You use prayer as a password to leave this house without suspicion? Claire bent forward, crying into her hands. I know. No, he said, voice breaking for the first time. I don't think you do. I respected your faith. I admired it. When you said church needed you, I stepped aside. I thought I was honoring something good in you. You were. Was I? She looked at him helplessly. He pointed toward the Bible tote. You made it part of the lie, Claire whispered. I was lonely. I believe you. She looked startled. He continued. I believe I failed you. I believe I gave my best hours to buildings and my leftovers to you. I believe I made you feel like a symbol beside me instead of my wife. Her face crumpled. But loneliness could have been a confession, he said. Betrayal was a choice. Claire nodded through tears. I know. He leaned back. Do you love him? She covered her face again. I thought I did. And now? I don't know. I think he made me feel seen. Jonathan looked toward the window where rain streaked the glass. That is not the same thing as love. No. Does he know that? Claire did not answer. Jonathan stood. You're not sleeping in our bed tonight. She nodded. I'll take the guest room. No, he said. Claire looked up. I need you to leave. Her face twisted with fresh pain. Tonight? Yes. Where should I go? I don't know. Your sister. A hotel. Not room 12. She flinched. It was cruel. It was also all he had left. Claire packed a small bag, while Jonathan remained in the kitchen. When she left, she paused near the door. I did love you, she said. Jonathan looked at her for a long time. I believe you. Her eyes filled. Then he added, That makes this worse. She nodded. Then walked out into the rain. The house became silent. Jonathan sat at the kitchen table until morning with the motel photos in front of him, and Claire's Bible tote still on the counter. Jonathan confronted Ryan the next afternoon at the church. He found him in the music room, packing cables into a black case. A guitar leaned against the wall. Sheet music lay open on a stand. Ryan looked up and froze. Jonathan? Jonathan closed the door behind him. I saw you at Willow Creek. Ryan's face tightened. He said nothing. Jonathan stepped closer. You knew she was my wife, and you still met her in a motel while she told me she was praying. Ryan looked down. I'm sorry. Jonathan's laugh was short and cold. That word is popular after people run out of lies. Ryan's jaw moved. Claire was unhappy. Yes, Jonathan said. She was. Ryan looked surprised. Jonathan continued. I was absent. I worked too much. I gave her gifts instead of attention. I will answer for what I failed to do in my marriage. Ryan swallowed. But you, Jonathan said, voice hardening, do not get to use my failures as a doorway into my wife. Ryan looked away. It wasn't like that. It was exactly like that. She came to me. Yes, her betrayal belongs to her. Yours belongs to you. Ryan's expression shifted from shame to defensiveness. We love each other. Jonathan stared at him. Real love does not need a motel room and a church lie. Ryan flinched. You wouldn't understand. I understand enough. Jonathan gestured toward a guitar. You stand in front of people and sing about truth. Then you walk into room 12 with another man's wife. Ryan said nothing. Jonathan stepped back. I've informed Pastor David. You can tell your version. I'll tell the truth. Ryan's face paled. You're going to ruin me? No, Jonathan said. You participated in your own ruin. I'm only refusing to keep it private for your comfort. He turned to leave. Ryan said, Jonathan, please. Jonathan stopped. If you contact Claire, that is between you and the damage you both created. If you contact me, I won't answer. If you step near my home again, I'll treat you as a trespasser. Then he left Ryan in the music room with the instruments that had once made him look holy. The church community learned enough. Not everything. Enough. Claire stepped down from women's ministry. Ryan was removed from the worship team. Pastor David announced vaguely that 2 members were entering a season of accountability and would no longer serve publicly. Vague announcements never stay vague in church communities, people whispered. Some with grief, some with appetite, some wrapped gossip in prayer language. Jonathan hated the humiliation, but he hated the hypocrisy more. People who once praised Claire as a model wife now spoke of her like a cautionary tale. People who had admired Ryan's broken humility now wondered whether he had used it as bait. People looked at Jonathan with pity, which he found almost unbearable. One Sunday, an older man approached him after service. Brother, marriage is about forgiveness. Jonathan looked at him. So is truth. The man had no answer. Jonathan stopped attending for a few weeks after that. Not because he had lost faith exactly. Because he did not trust himself not to resent everyone who tried to simplify his pain into a lesson. Pastor David visited him at the office. Jonathan almost refused the meeting, then allowed it. The pastor sat across from him without opening a Bible or offering easy comfort. I am sorry, Pastor David said, for the sin, for the betrayal, for the fact that church itself became part of the cover. Jonathan looked out the window. I don't know what to do with Faith right now. That is understandable. I keep seeing the church sticker on her windshield outside that motel. Pastor David nodded slowly. That image will hurt for a long time. It makes everything feel fake. Not everything was fake, the pastor said, but something false was hidden among sacred things that can make even true things feel unsafe. Jonathan turned back to him. Did I trust the wrong thing? You trusted your wife, Pastor David said. That is not wrong. She misused that trust. I trusted her because of church. Then you trusted an image as well as a person. Jonathan looked down. The words were painful because they were true. Pastor David continued gently. Faith can strengthen a marriage, but it cannot replace honesty. A church schedule is not character. A ministry role is not a clean heart. A Bible told does not make a person truthful. Jonathan gave a bitter smile. I learned that. I'm sorry you learned it this way. So was Jonathan. Claire moved into her sister Rachel's house for 2 months, then into a small apartment. At first, she cried constantly. Then came shame. Then, slowly, accountability. Rachel loved her enough not to let her hide. On the 3rd night, Claire said, Jonathan was never home. Rachel folded her arms. That may be true. Claire looked at her. But you were at a motel. Claire broke down. In counseling, Claire tried at first to explain the loneliness, the pressure, the perfect wife image, Jonathan's emotional absence, Ryan's attention. Her therapist listened, then asked, What did you choose? Claire cried. I chose to talk to Ryan. What else? I chose to hide it. What else? I chose the affair. What else? I chose to use church as a cover. What else? I chose to park outside that motel while telling my husband I was praying. The sentence gutted her. That was the version she could not decorate. She had not merely fallen into passion. She had driven there, parked there, carried a church sticker on the windshield and a Bible on the seat, walked into room 12, then returned home with prayer meeting in her mouth. She wrote Jonathan a letter 6 weeks later. The church did not betray you. I did. I used faith as a hiding place when it should have been the truth that stopped me. I used prayer meetings as a password because I knew you would not question them. I was lonely, and you were absent in ways that hurt me. But I chose deception. I chose Ryan. I chose the motel. I am sorry for the affair, and I am sorry for making sacred things part of my lie. Jonathan read the letter twice, then placed it in a drawer. He was not ready to forgive, but he recognized that, for once, Claire had told the truth without asking him to share blame for her choices. That mattered. Not enough, but it mattered. They tried counseling together for 4 months. Jonathan agreed because he needed to know whether the marriage was dead or merely wounded beyond recognition. Claire came to every session. She did not defend Ryan. She did not call the affair a mistake. She called it what it was. "I had an affair," she said in the first session. Jonathan stared at the floor. She continued, "I lied about church. I lied to Jonathan. I lied to the women at church. I used ministry as cover." The counselor asked Jonathan what hurt most. He did not answer immediately. Then he said, "The car." Claire looked up. He continued, "I keep seeing her car outside that motel. The church sticker, the Bible on the passenger seat, room 12 behind it." Claire began crying silently. Jonathan's voice remained low. It was like every part of the lie was in one image. The counselor nodded. "What did that image tell you?" Jonathan looked at Claire. "That I trusted the wrong version of her." Claire covered her mouth. Over the sessions, Jonathan admitted his failures. He had hidden in work. He had admired Claire's role more than he had listened to her reality. He had responded to emotional hunger with money, trips, and future promises. But the counselor helped them keep one line clear. His absence was failure. Her affair was betrayal. They were related, but not equal. In the final session, Claire asked, "Is there any chance you can trust me again?" Jonathan closed his eyes. He still loved her. That was the cruelest part. He loved the woman who had prayed with him when his mother was sick. He loved the woman who believed in him before investors did. He loved the woman who once said one closed door was not the whole house. But he could not unknow room 12. He opened his eyes. "I may forgive you someday." Claire held her breath. "But I cannot rebuild a marriage where sacred trust was used as a lie." She nodded, tears falling. "I understand. I did not lose faith because of you," he said. "I lost faith in the version of you that used church as a cover for betrayal." Claire bowed her head. That was the end. The divorce began quietly the following month. Months after the divorce was finalized, Jonathan drove past the Willow Creek Motel. He did not mean to. A highway closure forced him onto the frontage road, and suddenly the flickering sign appeared ahead. His hands tightened on the steering wheel. For a moment, the rain returned in his memory. Though the sky was clear, he saw Claire's Mercedes, the church sticker, room 12, Ryan's hand touching her face. He slowed. The motel looked smaller in daylight. Peeling paint, faded doors. A cracked parking lot. A soda machine humming near the office. Ugly, ordinary, almost pathetic. Jonathan realized he had turned it into a cathedral of pain in his mind. But it was only a motel. The betrayal was not powerful because of the building. It was powerful because of the trust carried there and broken. He kept driving. A mile later, he turned toward Grace Covenant Church. The sanctuary was empty when he arrived. Pastor David's assistant let him in without asking questions. Jonathan sat alone in the back pew. Sunlight filtered through stained glass, laying colors across the wooden floor. The room was quiet in a way that once would have comforted him and later would have angered him. Now it simply felt still. He looked toward the front, where he and Claire had once renewed their vows on their 10th anniversary. Ryan had played guitar that day, though Jonathan had almost forgotten that detail until now. The memory hurt, then passed. Not gone, but no longer consuming the whole room. Jonathan bowed his head. He did not pray beautifully. He did not know what words to use. So he said only, "Help me not confuse you with what they did." It was the most honest prayer he had spoken in months, maybe years. He sat there until the light shifted. When he finally stood to leave, he felt no dramatic healing, no sudden peace, no answer echoing through the sanctuary. But he also did not feel owned by the motel anymore. That was enough. Claire rebuilt her life away from the church spotlight. She moved to another part of town, continued therapy, and eventually found a small church where no one knew her story. For months, she did not volunteer, did not lead, did not advise anyone about marriage. She sat in the back and let herself be unknown. That humility hurt more than public shame. Public shame fades. Honest humility stays. Ryan left Grace Covenant and then Nashville. Claire heard he moved to Texas. She did not contact him. When he sent one email months later, saying he still loved her and believed what they had was real, she deleted it after one reply. Real love does not require someone to lie about prayer. Do not contact me again. She meant it. In her journal, Claire wrote, "I thought church made me look good enough to hide the truth. But faith used as a costume becomes another kind of darkness. I do not want to look faithful anymore. I want to become honest. That was a beginning. Not redemption fully, but a beginning. A year after the divorce, Jonathan no longer worked every night. Natalie noticed first. "You're leaving before 6?" she asked one Thursday. Jonathan put on his coat. "I hear people do that. Healthy people?" "So I'm told." She smiled. "Good for you." He paused near the door. "Natalie." "Yes?" "Thank you for sending the photo." Her expression softened. "I'm sorry I had to." "So won't we?" He had never asked why she was near the motel that night. She had explained anyway later. A client meeting ran long, and she took the back road home. Chance, maybe. Or Mercy wearing the mask of coincidence. The photo had destroyed the lie, but not his life. That distinction took time. Jonathan still carried scars. He still felt uneasy when someone said they had a church meeting. He still had moments when faith and betrayal tangled together. But he was learning to separate the sacred from the people who misused it. A church could hold hypocrites and still not be hypocrisy. A prayer could be used as cover and still remain holy when spoken truthfully. A marriage could fail without making love foolish. Trusting Claire had not made him stupid. Lying had made her unworthy of that trust. That difference became the foundation of his healing. On a quiet Sunday evening, Jonathan returned home from church and sat at his kitchen table. The house was smaller now in feeling, though physically unchanged. Claire's things were gone. The silence was different. At first, it had been unbearable. Now it felt clean. He opened the drawer where he had kept Claire's letter. Beside it was the printed photo Natalie had sent. Claire's white Mercedes outside room 12, the church sticker on the windshield, the motel sign reflected in the wet pavement. For a long time, Jonathan looked at it. Then, he took the photo, folded it once, and placed it in a small envelope with the divorce papers. He did not destroy it. Not yet. But he no longer needed it on hand to prove the truth to himself. He knew what happened. He also knew what it did not mean. It did not mean all faith was false. It did not mean all love was performance. It did not mean every prayer hid a lie. It meant one person had chosen betrayal and used sacred language to disguise it. That was terrible enough. It did not need to become everything. Jonathan closed the drawer. Outside, evening settled over Nashville. Somewhere in the distance, church bells rang. The sound no longer comforted him as easily as before, but it no longer made him angry either. It simply called through the quiet. Faith can make a marriage stronger, but only when it is lived honestly. When someone uses church as a cover for betrayal, the deepest wound is not only the affair. It is realizing that prayer, trust, and sacred words were turned into hiding places for a lie. But sacred things do not become false because someone hides behind them. A church can be used as a cover. A Bible can sit in a car outside a motel. A prayer meeting can become an alibi. But truth has a way of standing in the parking lot with headlights on, waiting to be seen. Jonathan had seen it. And though it broke his marriage, it also freed him from continuing to live inside a lie. That night, he turned off the kitchen light and walked upstairs alone, not perfectly healed, not untouched, but honest. And for the first time in a long time, honesty felt like a place where he could begin again.